text for today is Psalm 46. I invite you to listen in to the words of God. The psalmist writes, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear though the earth should change, though the mountains shake in the heart of the sea, though the waters roar and foam, though the mountains tremble with all its tumult. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy habitation of the Most High. God is in the midst of the city. It shall not be moved. God will help it when the morning dawns. The nations, they are in uproar. The kingdoms totter. God utters God's voice, and the earth melts. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Come, behold the works of the Lord. See the desolation he has brought on the earth. God makes wars to cease to the ends of the earth, breaking the bow and shattering the spear. He burns the shield with fire. Be still and know that I am God. I am exalted among the nations. I am exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. I was sitting in a church meeting with a bunch of other pastors in the fall of 2001. It was an annual gathering of all the United Methodist ministers in Lansing. And there we sat in the church basement, sipping coffee and connecting on September 11th, 2001. My mind was obviously in other places when someone came down the steps and said, a plane has just flown into the World Trade Center. And the room froze. I remember one person getting up and going to the kitchen phone, calling someone. And as I was trying to process what was just said, all I could hear was the metal sound of screeching chairs on a linoleum floor, and people began to move upstairs in silence. We walked together to our cars, but we didn't say anything. To break the silence, I turned on the radio and heard the story as it continued to grow and get worse, not just one plane, but more. I went back to the silence. As I was driving back to the church, I thought, what am I supposed to do? What can I do? Prayer. Prayer is a good place to start. And these words came to me. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Maybe you remember where you were on September 11th, 2001, or maybe you hadn't arrived on the scene yet. Maybe you've heard about the story from family or friends or watched the videos. It was a time of great uncertainty and fear. And while Psalm 41 continued to run through my head, I used the passage for a community remembrance service a few days after 9/11. Whenever I hear Psalm 46, I can't help but be put back into those times and situations. And whenever it appears in the lectionary like it does this week, I am transported back to those moments of driving from a meeting into the church and then hearing that voice from deep within. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Psalm 46 is describing the nature of God, present as well as how God will be in times to come. How God arrives on the scene before we even ask or know it. But what we don't know and what we can't find out is what drew the psalmist to write these words. What incidents or previous life chapters drew the psalmist into a discussion with God in a way in the world, not absent from the world. Well, we can't do a post or an interview with the psalmist While it's unclear exactly what the psalmist is responding to or what is exactly happening in the world at the time, the poet was grounded in how God related to him, they, and a community. Maybe there was chaos in the world. The earth was shaking. The waters were erupting. Maybe there was violence, wars, or maybe there was deep violence within the community. There is a grounding in the psalm as to who God is or ways God connects with the daily rhythms of life, as well as how God is connected or disconnected to the daily chaos and confusion that took place back then, as well as it does now. When we read this psalm, it is not a story like, once upon a time there was this scenario that unfolded. Maybe the psalmist is responding to a lament. Where is God in the midst of this suffering and chaos? Maybe the psalmist is responding to a recent shift in power or an emerging threat, a war, a food shortage, a national disaster. The psalmist does not turn these situations into a way to tell a story that is untrue. God is punishing humanity for turning their backs on God, or God is not pleased with what this group or that group is doing. Here the psalmist starts with, God is our. There is a collective, not mine, but our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Here God is already present as things fall apart. God is the Holy One, the sacred wanderer that holds God's people together. God is not reaching out with vengeance or wrath. You crossed me and you deserve everything you're getting now. Instead, God steps forward. God steps into the world as a companion and partners with the resistance movement, turning from chaos to a place of centering and hope. God will help. God is in control. Not the powers of the world that use fear and bullying to threaten life or livelihood. Instead, God resides in the midst of the chaos. There's a fine line that the psalmist invites us into. Are we going to follow the chaos or the confusion or find solace in the storm, remembering that God is in the midst of this, whatever this may be? Keep calm and carry on, so to speak. God is a helper. God remains in the struggle. There is strength for God in being together. In the days following my mom's stroke, I sat in a hospital room day and night, praying for something to happen. On a cold, late January afternoon, still in the throes of COVID, a friend met me outside the hospital and we went for a walk in the cold. There was a light dusting of snow on the sidewalk that kind of swirled around in front of us, as if it was making a trail for us to walk through. I put my hand out and we stopped for a moment in the silence, since words escaped me. And we just watched. And in that moment, together, felt a presence that we couldn't describe. It was something that I couldn't explain. It was just as the snow kind of swirled around, it just kind of parted in front of us. I'm sure there's some kind of scientific, rational reason why that happened. But in that moment, I saw it as intentionality. It was presence in the storm. It was the help in the time that I needed. A comfort and a strength in troubling times. God didn't show up on a horse with a mighty cavalry. God didn't answer my prayers in the way I thought. But instead, God came alongside as presence, as reassurance, and God listened. In the same way, God invites us in each and every day of life. And that's what the psalmist is leading us toward. That God is a good listener. And that's why the psalmist concludes with, "Be still and know that I am God." Be still and know that I am God, the God of Jacob, the God of Abraham, the God of Sarah, the God that dreamed and created and separated day from night. And God says to us, "Be still and know that I am God." I invite you just to repeat after me, "Be still and know that I am God." Be still and know that I am God. Take a big deep breath in. Let's do it again. Be still and know that I am God. Now repeat after me. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know. Be still and know. Be still. Be still. Be. The world is in chaos right now. Words, 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 blame, blame, blame. Everyone's fault. No one takes responsibility for anything. And what is in our reach? What can we do? While we have not been here before, God has. God is listening, and God is with us. Here within lies the hope and promise that connects us with the story that came into being long before us and will continue long after us. Here deep within echoes the way of the Word. The Word that became flesh and lived among us. And as the Gospel writer of John writes in the opening, the Word was God, was with God, and the Word was God. God is stepping into this moment. And for this end marks the new beginning. In the Christian calendar, this is the last Sunday of the year, so this is New Year's Eve, so to speak. And we can let go of this past year as next week starts the first Sunday in Advent. A time of being still and waiting for the coming of Christ. It's 4 weeks marked with preparation and waiting for what is to come. But it's not about preparing the outside. It's preparing what lies deep within. And it is a time of being still as the daylight grows shorter, as we emerge into a time of darkness. So, what are we to do? So the questions for today kind of help us to guide our thoughts as we leave this place. The first one is, how do you experience God in the midst? And what are ways to be still in uneasy times? What are ways we can practice God's invitation to be still and know that I am God? So group up, find someone around you to talk with. If you don't like that person that's sitting next to you, you're talking all the time, like move around the room, whatever you want to do. And then we'll kind of come back and share kind of nuggets of insight with everyone.